I'd like to start by saying that, who created the yardstick to measure creativity by? Since there's no accounting for taste, how can you tell when something is creative or when something is, to borrow a parlance that we use in hip-hop industry, when something is whack? I see it thrown around, this is what creativity is defined as, this is how it's measured, online content creators are more creative than agencies, agencies need to be as creative as their Western counterparts, this is not creative enough for us, please turn it up a notch, can you pop a little more, can it be more creative? So what has always eluded me is that it's not often that you find that game recognizes game, or a client or a prospect gets where you're coming from. It's not every time that you have an experiential overlap where, we both drink from Star Wars, and then I make it an obscure Star Wars reference. True. And then we all get it, and that's creativity. True. So what has always been a conundrum for me is, who dictates what it is, and how do we, measure it, and what does is right, at every point, in the conversation.
So BJ, your point is very valid, and we struggle with this in this industry a bit. And it's essentially from the point of view of what are we being creative about, all right? And sometimes, there's a difference between somebody who is an artist making a painting, and you bring that into a commercial setting where you have to worry about the fit for the brand, for the market, for the consumer. And so definition of creativity is bound to bounce along different understanding and expectations. But by and large, I think what a lot of people should be bothered about should be what should be the outcome of this creativity. All right. What is the expected turnaround that you expect your creativity to bring about? Because we're talking about business here, and you can be creative and still have very limited or zero impact on your business. And I'm sure that can lead us right into the issues around, is creativity effective, or is it truly creative, as it were?
Yeah. And also the issue about how much of it, what is the measure of it do we need in our business? Because I think also it might also be the most abused term in our industry. Like, it's a creative industry. So we think by that definition, the all creativity resides with us only. Yeah. And we are the, know all and be all, say all of what creativity is. Not really, not factoring in the client's input, not factoring the level of exposure of the target, not factoring in, what is the prevailing mood of the times, as it were, to create, to put something together. The easiest example I always quote would be that a fine artist can sit in a studio and wait for inspiration, and then he's got it, and then he whips up something creative. Whereas a commercial artist does not have that kind of leeway. You get a brief, you get to adhere to the brief, and at the end of the day, it is not even as rewarding as what the fine artist gets, in that, there's accolade. People know that it's your work, your name is attached to it. But for the creative person, the business and the creative person advertising, it's almost like, hey, you can't sign your name on the billboard. True. So it's thankless. So that way, people get to feel like, maybe the required amount of creativity isn't being pushed into it, because, we don't really get anything in return, because it doesn't really bounce off us. But despite the fact that, hey, it's a creative business, we call ourselves, I think as an industry, we need to step back and recognize that, hey, we don't have the monopoly of it. That term can apply to how the research and development departments in the clients came up with something, how the product was designed, how the go-to-market strategy was planned, how we were briefed before we came into that value chain to now put a little spin to it. Exactly. So we don't. So oh, the creative industry, oh, we are the creative people. No, it's not left to us. Even the interpretation of the consumer and how they choose to evolve with the product, how they choose to use it, or mix it with this or that, has a little bit of creativity, in itself. So I think it's larger than us in this room, really. Yeah.
I mean, so spot on. I always have a challenge with people trying to define creativity in a particular way, and I'll tell you why. Creativity can come from the most innocuous situation. Sometimes we work in an industry. So for me, creativity basically means bringing something from a latent state and making it become unique, stand out. So the way a painter picks up a blank canvas and puts colors on it, or picks a bunch of metals and creates something out of it. So we in our industry basically are faced with a similar situation. Whether it's a product, it's a brand, it's a corporate, whatever it is, it's in a latent state. And basically what you're trying to do is move it from that state by adding value to it. And creativity is about adding value to position of things. So, and you mentioned something about the fact that in our industry, there has to be a contextual understanding of what creativity is. The things that were creative in 1990s in this market is irrelevant today. All right. Remember those days when for you to drive a sales promo, all you had to do was put some numbers under a crown cork and your sales would just go boom.
Or put the picture or what they will redeem.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Today, does that really work? I mean, people are now looking for creativity in the context. So people are going to different platforms. So mind you, if you look at creativity, you have to look at it in the context of what is happening. All right. So we have an economy where you're dealing with technology and what technology is doing. All right. Increase in personalization, collaboration, automation, convergence, and even the kind of media we are consuming is driving the understanding and interpretation of creativity. So you sit in front of a client and the client says, I want a creative solution to my problem. All right. The first thing you are thinking about is not necessarily go and do a product innovation. It might just be basically that you need to understand where the consumer is at the moment, what is facing, how the product is not solving that problem, and how do you come up with an idea that makes this consumer see this product in a different light. And that can come from just being different in the way you position the product in the market, or the kind of market you take it to. And creativity can come from even the consumer, because we've seen products where the creativity is sparked by the consumer. So the consumer basically takes a product and uses it in a different way. And the client says, oh, wow, this is a big idea. All right?
Yeah. I think one of the points will be then striking a balance between maybe the business objective and how much dose of creativity we can inject. Like you said, how much value can we add? How much value is too much value?
Yeah.
How much value is winking in the dark?
Yeah.
How much value is into intellectual masturbation? Yet, how much value is towing the line of tired troops that we've always used and regurgitating them?
True.
And I think that's a larger question. For me, it will be that there are cases around where we'll get to the cases later on, but not to preempt what we'll say there, will be that it's always been a case of looking to the West and seeing how we can borrow from tropes from there to to tell stories or to add value. But nowadays, I think things are being done a bit differently. Yeah, do you agree? Yeah,
I agree with you. The beauty of our industry is that you are exposed to a consistently dynamic environment. The products are always changing. The consumer is always changing. Even competition is always changing the popular saying goes that only you have to be, how do you put it now? You have to be crazy to survive in this industry. And so you'd find out that if you are not schizophrenic, if you are not crazy, you are not looking behind you all the time, somebody is going to do an Uber on you, pardon my expression. But you have to continually, and guess what? The word disruption is becoming a recurring decimal.
commonplace now.
And so I think I'll ask you the question, BJ. I mean, I find it difficult to distinguish between disruption and creativity. What's your take on this? Because these two words are either overused or interchangeably used, that we lose track of what is what.
I mean, the term was coined by the TBWA man. I think it piggybacks on creativity, really. Yeah. It is just doing creativity differently. It's like a set way of like a proprietary tool. I mean, it started from them, then it became commonplace, and now it's, every management training school or class, everybody, throws that. I think it's no different from how DDB would say ROI Springboard or the 4Fs, or how,
or the brown wheel.
Exactly. Yeah, all those tools are, the quest is really to find a different way to be creative, because in the attempt to being unique, to being different, then it'll be adjudged as being creative, because at least you went a little differently than the industry expected. I'd like to move into the issue of effectiveness. I mean, you're privy to that research or that report by the IPA that creatively rewarded campaigns do better. I think about 11 times better than than regular campaigns. And as a matter of fact, campaigns that have cited or won awards that have been mentioned on the Gone reports, deliver better for businesses than your regular jingles and stickers and starbursts you get. So I know that the research can back that up in the UK and elsewhere, but how about Nigeria?
Like they say on the streets, packaging, right, on the streets. But I think it's the same thing even here in Nigeria. So if you I'll cast my mind. I'm sorry, we're not supposed to go into example, but I'll cast my mind back to an ad that I grew up with, Dunlop Elite Nababa. That ad was so powerful that almost every driver in the country, right, wanted to drive on a Dunlop tire.
Hey, chiki power.
Chiki power. Dunlop Elite Nababa. So in our own cultural context, we can find those relevant materials that are creative and also relevant. And I believe strongly that the more or the campaigns that have won a lot of awards also stand the chance to be more productive and more effective in driving the business objectives, as it were. So I agree, not only with Gone, but I agree that even from a common sense view of it, you would find out that those things that are memorable, that are disruptive, have a way to impacting the business, as it were. All right, so BJ, I mean, here we are, and probably the most interesting and exciting part, which is something you enjoy doing basically, is to analyze some of these creative works that have really made the mark out there in the market. And a few examples are bound here, even locally. So maybe we should just jump off and shoot off straight with the Airtel 4G campaign, as it were. I mean, creativity probably doesn't come any better. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for us, the challenge then was, if I take it from the first Data is Life campaign, was a case of and it's a prime example of a creative idea solving a business problem. We were the only ones behind on 4G. We didn't have the technology, and we needed to at least say something or put some statement out there while everybody was going on about speed, reliability. I mean, all the category conventions. So we circumvented that. We decided to go a different way, which was to showcase that, hey, or to actually tap into the insights, and ask the millennials. We had a large focus group asking the young ones, well, what does data mean to you? What do you feel when you're without data? And how do you interpret it? And we literally took the words from the horse's mouth to form the bane for that campaign that became Data is Life. And some of the insights that came out were, oh, I feel like I'm lost. I feel like I'm dead. I feel like I'm standing on a tree and I'm shouting and nobody can hear me. If I'm offline for a day, my family would think something is wrong with me. So you realize that, hey, the millennials who are really the guys that are online, were able to assist us with all of these insights that became the backbone for the campaign. So then it became, after that, that was Lost, and then Alex and Joe. And then after that, we introduced Ami, and then after that, the in-laws. And you realize that incrementally, we've been able to sustain it in a way that, hey, we've been able to build a world where one spirals into the next. I mean, we don't claim to be Disney or Marvel Studios with a world building strategy. We make it up as the brief, as the challenge comes along. I just find a way to string it all together, But I think it's in ensuring that the local insights, is germane to what the brief, what the problem is. If you can tick that box, ensure that it's relatable, I think it'll be a win-win for you and your brand.
I mean, great stuff. I mean, for most people who are just cursory observers of the art world, the marketing space, a lot of reference goes to this particular material, and not for anything. Sometimes, and again, this is me, and I like to speak as a non-practitioner, speak like the man, regular guy on the street. Sometimes people like to see themselves in a communication material, all right? And the creativity that is brought to bear in allowing your target audience, your consumer, to be able to relate with the material, the relatability of that material to his present state, or somebody he knows, or something he has experienced before, passed through before, is usually, for me, as like I said, as a non-professional, usually that aha moment. I've heard people come to me to say, you know what, that person reminds me of my mom, of my sister, of my dad. Now, the point where creativity comes in, and we did talk about that a bit in the first section, was basically, is this effective? Does this make sense to the guy we've seen? Is it relevant to them? And again, you must be able to, and I don't believe in ticking the boxes, but you must be able to say, this answers the brief, this answers the brief, this answers the brief. Because eventually, when all is said and done, your creative output must solve a business problem.
Definitely.
The client is not paying you to win an award.
Definitely.
It's paying you to solve a problem. So every time I sit in front of a client and the client says, this is my business objective, the first thing that comes to my mind when we are reviewing creative work is, does this address a business objective? Quickly, we'll look at another brand. Again, I sometimes when I see marketing solutions or marketing communications for brands, I ask myself, what could have been the brief? And one of the brands that I think I can hazard a guess what the brief was the Coca-Cola personal edition campaign that was called, what was it called again? Share Coke.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that was another masterpiece, creative output that solved the problem. I mean, what's your take on this?
I mean, I think it's one of the best marketing examples for what they call mass customization, where you take a little unit of an idea and then you make it, personalize it for every individual as well. I think we were in Cannes in 2013 when I can't remember the country that launched it first, won a lot of award with the piece, and then like 4 years later we saw it adapted in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So I was privy of the good work done. And it also goes to show that the budget matters as good as the insight or the idea is. The brand has to be able to go all out. I'm sure you're aware, like 2 years ago they even did the customization for music, in that they had a platform that would mention your name, and if your name is not mentioned, you can go on the platform, type your name, and in a week or two they will update the song and mention you in it. So I mean, these are things that you've always wished your brand could do. But hey, yeah, the fact that, you have to imagine how many labels they have to print for that kind of stuff. But of course, it was rewarding. Of course, in a category that was declining, they were able to, record, major sales. So, I mean, that's the power of creativity. I don't think it's fair to leave without advising our listeners, practitioners, clients, consumers about how much dose of creativity is needed in their business, or what exactly they can do. I think for me, the easiest suggestion would be to tell people to always look out for great insights. Like, you have to ensure that you dig deep enough. Because we're Africans, we might have a bias for cultural insights, but that doesn't mean that they are not universal truths that cut across everybody. For example, the in-laws, the fact that rivalry always happens in the household when there's a new baby in the house, and then throw your product in that mix. The fact that the potential son-in-law will always try to please the mother-in-law.
True.
Those little nuance. The fact that more of the recent one, the spots where the elder sister is bullying the younger sister. The fact that your elder sibling will always hold something over you and expect you to do some chores and all of that. Sure. The insight about conditioning. The fact that Africans are conditioned to manage and squeeze and manage, and you see mothers, stretching the stew a little bit longer than it should go. Dude, that's the point where you mentioned about people wanting to see themselves in the commercial. That is, it's not a theory of relativity, but it is relativity.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and that's what I would advise people to look out for. That, hey, let people be able to see themselves in it. Let the insights be strong enough, and I think the rest is just execution.
Thank you very much. I mean, just to add to what you've said, I think also for brand owners, your brand must be able, first and foremost, to deliver on the promise. There's no need being creative about a brand communication if the brand at the moment of truth cannot deliver on the brand promise. Let's look at, as we round up, let's look at 3 Crowns milk, for instance. There's a universal truth. Mothers basically represent a major powerhouse in families, and the role they play cannot be overemphasized. However, if you are selling a product like a milk product that is supposed to make their lives better, strengthen them, and make them healthier, then that product had better be able to deliver on the brand promise. And that's where the product truth comes to play. Basically, it's a product that says low cholesterol for healthy moms. And so one of for me, a nugget will be that your brand must be able to deliver on the brand promise.
Okay.
All right. And apart from that, there has to be a humanness about your brand. Your brand must feel like a friend, a mom, you understand? And therefore, your communication can ride on that kind of relationship. A lot of people will tell you, I don't care what they say about this brand. I have a relationship with this brand. And so that's very critical. And it takes a process of building the brand. Promos, I hear promos, they are good, but you have to build the brands and build the brand and connect with the consumer, as it were. So for me, those are critical aspects of, blending creativity and business objectives in a fine mix to give you the outputs that you're looking for.
Let's quickly, before we go, talk about creativity from an advertising agency standpoint, and then from an independent content creator online standpoint.
Okay.
The fact that regulation is...
Are we running?
Yes, we're running. Okay. Regulation is kind of loose for them.
Yeah.
There is no AppCon, there is no AAAN. They are allowed to use,
any language, any visual.
Online, yeah. So by that, they are deemed a bit more creative or a little more risky or a little more out there. And then they get more notoriety. They go viral faster than perhaps the kind of creativity that is cooked in the lab between the client and the agency and presented, not to offend people in the north or in the east or in the south. And then it's all wrapped and nicely done. Whereas some guy online just does something funny, does something crazy, something sexy, and then that is the yardstick for creativity. How do we navigate this?
So BJ, very touchy, very sensitive point. I mean, let's put it in context, because the content creators are part of the creativity or creative ecosystem.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, they are.
So they feed that ecosystem. However, because of the nature of what they create, most of which is a bit ephemeral, you would find out that yes, they go viral, but do they have the stay power? Do they have it? Compared to brand communications that you've seen, so Peak Milk, one day I know you go
Make us proud.
you go make us proud. People still remember it. I mentioned the Dunlop case, and so many of them. What is happening is the amount of appetite that people have for content, and I mean the content creators are solving that problem.
How quickly
which
they
is
discard it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, most things won't trend for more than 24 hours, max 48 hours. The focus, therefore, is for us in this industry not to lose our focus by saying, okay, because client wants something that will trend. It's basically to pull the client hold them by the hand to say, you know what, if you want something that is going to have the longevity that you're looking for, remain relevant, then you have to spend more time in building the brand, because these are very finicky or one-offish, if I may use that expression, materials. And yes, they get rewarded, they get acknowledged and all of that. But on the long run, a brand is built on that kind of consumer engagement, that creating the kind of materials that we create in our industry.
Enduring stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to fleeting, it's funny, and then
that's what you have to deal with social media anyways,
next one.
and technology online. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Thank you.